Hey everybody, Denskill here. Hope you're having a good day. If you've watched my channel before and seen my Gear Journey series, it's pretty much themed around the journey and not so much the destination. However, at some point I think we'd all like to arrive, as traveling can be difficult, uncomfortable, and sometimes expensive. In this episode, we'll talk about how guitarists can potentially end their journey and find a way to their home of tone. If you're experiencing gas or gear acquisition syndrome, stick around. It's been just over a year since I did my video about surviving gas, and I also did a video on my great gear purge in 2021. It's now 2023, and in that time, I've spent a serious amount of time building up some gear and selling a bunch of other stuff. That includes spending time with digital modelers, and it was all in my pursuit of tone, and in that journey, I pretty much have gone back to analog old school technology. And it's been a super fun journey, but also stressful at the same time in certain cases. So, in those overly wordy, overly serious, and cringeworthy couple of videos, I talked about how gas is a real thing and some ways that I was dealing with it at the time. So, this is a bit of a follow up video to those to talk about where I'm at now in 2023. Specifically, what strategy or strategies have I used for gas that worked and which ones didn't. You'll get to see some gear here for some eye candy, but really the value of this video is, what you guys have experienced in your gas journey or your gear journey, and what's your story. I'd really love to know where you're at. Has it changed? Does it keep changing? I'd really love to hear your thoughts and stories in the comments. So the main goal in my gas strategy basically was to lock it down. This meant, fencing off and building walls against my, so-called needs and desires. So in terms of needs, I sold all the gear I really fully wasn't using to its limits or using often enough. And I kind of went through a process of acquiring a bunch of what I call dead end or, dead end gear where it's like, this is like all I will ever need. Examples of that would include, the actual API 512V preamps, I'm good with preamps now. But, in that process, I really had to do a lot of legwork, to move stuff at the same time, not get soaked dollar wise, right? So that was kind of the needs side of things. In terms of, the desire thing, really, I have a problem in that I can't help but think about new gear, especially when it comes out. Like it's in my feeds and all that stuff, and it's advertisements. And, people are pushing it and talking about it in various, guitar communities. I will stop waving my hands now. But, it's my desires kind of spread not just to new gear, but, also old, cool, vintage stuff, unique stuff that isn't made anymore. So part of my strategy in the past year is, looking at my thoughts and thinking about what I can do to stop sort of entertaining and paying attention to those thoughts that come up, those desires for new gear or old gear. And how that translates in the practical sense is obviously I get that stuff in the internet feeds and, all over the place. So, I just kind of scroll past it now. I just, I take a glimpse to see if there's anything cool. I'm always interested in how, music technology develops, but, I don't necessarily need it. I don't have a reverb feed. I don't have reverb sending me, I don't keep lists of gear, that I want or anything like that. And the other thing that I actively do is I really pay attention and I look a lot and I hold a lot and use a lot the gear that I have. It's easy for me to say I have all that I need, use it, then waste time thinking about getting more or, changing anything out, getting different crap, right? So I notice that when I get into a gaseous state, I get all fizzy and, my thoughts get all bloated and weird and I feel like, crap. And several parts of my already obsessive personality just ignite. They flare up, they go off. I start getting really technical. I start thinking about signal chains and pedal board integrations and running things in stereo, tuning stability and frequency responses. And I go down these rabbit holes essentially. I also get all fizzy and think about all the creative stuff that I can do with this new equipment and gear. And, oh my God, it's going to sound so great. Or I can use this for this, and that. And Now I can do all this cool looping, stereo looping. Wow, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I just go nuts. I start over planning. Like, okay, that means I'm gonna have to sell this piece of gear to get that piece of gear. I'll need the money for that to get this. Oh, that means I have two of these. I can move that to make room for this, and it just the gerbil starts spinning in the on the cage there for sure. So really, I've been trying to pop that balloon, like get away from that. That's been my whole strategy with gas is shut it down, baby. So did my strategy work in the year since I filmed those videos? I'm gonna be completely honest. It worked in some ways, mostly yes, but Jesus Christ on a bicycle, hell no. And I'll break that down. Yes, it worked in that, right now I've buckled down on acquiring more gear. Like, kind of numb to it. I have been looking at gear. I've been working through my gas and seeing ads like Strymon stuff, pedal that just came out. There's always stuff coming out. I've been getting bombarded with it as usual, but I've managed to sort of, move past it and not let it get me so ignited. Essentially, I'm up to a stage where I'm thinking no more iMacs. Please see the little comment below as to what an iMac is for all you nerdy people out there. The way I look at it is I have basically locked down. I've got every conceivable category of gear that I can think of. Everything from, guitars, pedals, and amps to, recording equipment. In this video, we'll go through that a little more in detail a bit later. I've also shed everything that I don't use or that's redundant to me. I'm at the point where I cannot, on a technical or rational level, justify a need for any piece of gear. I can't change anything. I've got everything that that could possibly want or use. Anything other than strings, picks, and cables. That's all I need. I've even gone to the extent of locking down all my guitar straps, and I don't even need guitar straps. So that's where a bit of the strategy has worked. Where hasn't it worked for me? Like, how have I lost the battle against gas? Well, I look at the results. I look at what I have acquired and what's around me. So I've ended up repurchasing 4 guitars that I previously sold. And my total number of electric guitars has gone up from 11 to 12. I think that's about the same as it was last year, but I went down to 11 for, quite a long time there. All 5 of my pedal boards have been changed up and remodeled in the past year, some multiple times. Again, in the move to try and lock them down and make them future-proof. I've got them set to a point now where I don't want to mess with them, but along the way, they were changed quite a bit, which gets expensive. So I also bought a new amp. I went down in an amp, but I also replaced an amp, so that was pretty pricey. And like in terms of recording equipment, selling the amp allowed me to get some preamps and some microphones. And so yeah, gas still had its hits on me. Like, I sold a bunch, but I don't think I broke all that close to being even. And it really has been a chore selling off that stuff online and, like shipping it or meeting people. Like, that's a pain in the butt. So I'm still going through the hassles and the pain of gas, right? I feel like that's obviously a bit of a mixed answer, but, sometimes two truths can be, valid and at the same time, right? That happens in life. There's a lot of gray area. I feel like I've arrived off the gas train, but I really haven't been around long enough yet to see that it's really been locked down, so to speak. I'm using all these new toys and equipment, and I'm loving the crap out of it like a kid, in a candy store. It's fantastic. So I really feel at the end of the day, it has been worth it. The strategies of trying to lock things down and all the stuff I'm going through, which I'll get into more detail. It's been worth it. In the end of the day, I'm really happy with my sound and my tone. And it feels like it's been worth the hassle of selling and flipping all the other gear. There was indeed a lot of, worrying and about, gear working out and worrying about the money and a lot of waiting and dollars spent, just in trying to get off this gas train. What I theoretically think to be possible is to complete my gear journey, or at least get to a well-cooked state, where I'm happy. Like I said, I like to think that I'm done, but really, in truth, time will only tell, right? Let's see what I end up. I might have to do another follow-up video in a year to check in with myself to see where I'm at. In the meantime, I know that I have to, work on it consciously, in the sense that, I have to abort any thoughts of gear that come up. If I see something on Facebook or, a new piece of gear, I have to consciously abort any thoughts of looking further into it more than just at a high level. And in cases where I can't, I have to attack that planning side, that part of me that ignites the technical, creative spark, the the planning thing. I have to attack those types of thoughts and that energy with the same kind of cold, rational logic and truth. The same energy that I used to try and justify and rationalize those purchases is the same energy I have to use to de-rationalize them and talk myself out of them, basically. For me, most if not all roads, equipment-wise and gear-wise, have been explored. Like I said, I tried the digital world and plugins. It's just not for me. I like the sound of analog and old school equipment better. So, I've gone down that path before. So I can't really say, oh, I don't have experience with it, or I wonder what that stuff is like, because, I sold my Quad Cortex for a reason, and that video got a lot of hits. So have to remind myself that I've been there. That's a good way of dealing with those types of thoughts, sort of urges that kind of come up from outside, right? The other thing too is like impulse buys. Late at night, on the weekend, sometimes people buy things out of being bored or, just like a remote kind of interest, more of an impulse than anything. I'm prone to that. So I just have to keep grounding myself by looking at my gear, using it, playing it, appreciating it. Stuff that I have is fantastic. So, I'm good with that. So as promised in this part of the video, we're going to look at 4 categories of gear that I made changes in: recording gear, amps, pedals, and guitars. So we'll go through the changes that I've made here real quick. Some of it's more exciting than other stuff. Starting off is the API mic preamps here. These are 512Vs. I've got 3 of them in a workhorse rack unit made by Radial here. And those are going right into my DAW, which is a Motu 8 Pre. So I got the rack unit and the workhorse as part of sale of my orange amplifier, which we'll get to. I also bought another SM57 and a Shure SM7B to basically improve my YouTube game, get better audio, which is, I'm just using the camera audio right now for this section. So with the API 512V preamps, I'm getting a lot better sounds at home with recording. And I made a couple videos about mic preamps for guitar players. I'll put a card up here. And I also made a video about comparing the use of mic pre's versus going direct versus using the universal audio aux box. So there's a card for that. So in terms of amps, longtime viewers of my channel will notice that a couple things here. Orange Custom Shop 50 is gone. I love that amp, but it just had to go. It needed a new home. I needed the money. Great amp, not quite as versatile as what I was hoping for. So it has found a great new home, and I do kind of miss it, because the one thing it did extremely well. Yeah, I'll miss that amp, but yeah, I needed the funds to purchase those API 512Vs. You'll also notice that my Mesa Boogie California Tweed is gone, and in its place here sits a Friedman small box. We'll do a video on that in the future. There's not a lot of videos about the particular combo amp, or at least with any with real good sound, and I'd like to get some good mics and run that through my mic pre's there to get some good demos and good tones out of it for everyone to enjoy. So 2 amps are gone. I'm down to 3. Reason I went with 3, stuck with 3, which is my magic number, is you'll notice I have 3 preamps, 3 amps, and that's because in the past year I have built up this guy, which is a wet dry wet board. Guitar comes in, this goes to a dry amp, meaning it doesn't run through the effects chain here. It just goes straight through these preamps. These other 2 cables run through these wet effects in stereo. Friedman gets wet signal. Badger 35 gets just a straight guitar signal through the preamps, and the Mesa Boogie Mark 5 35 also gets a wet signal there. So it sounds awesome. It sounds magic, especially mic'd up. It works out really well. So other changes include my dirt board here has been extremely updated. I made a video about my all gain dirt board. This is the new formation of it, which has some increased fuzz, a bunch of changes. That board's been updated. My main 2023 pedal board has been updated. Here's a link to that video that I just put out recently about that. My super all wet board had some changes and was remodeled, as was my little board that I use for my cover band. I pulled a fuzz pedal off of that and added a compressor. It's got 5 pedals on it, and it covers all the bases from my 80s Canadian rock band. So that's it for pedals. Let's look at guitars. And lastly, since that video was made, looking at guitars, I've made several changes. So gone are the blue PRS CE24 you might have seen hanging on the wall behind me. I had a blue Charvel Pro Mod 24 fret. I had that for about a month and traded that in. I had a Taylor GS Mini guitar made of koa with electronics in it. Very cool. Sold that one. I also had, you might have seen, blue Les Paul Special. Well, it was TV yellow. I had it painted blue and I changed the pickups on it. That LP Special was also sold to fund other purchases. And also for a brief time, I took a run with a Yamaha Rev Star, one of the new 2022 models. Another great guitar. It's also gone. So you'll notice, for example, in my hands here, I have another Les Paul Special. I really missed the Les Paul Special. I missed the P90s, and you know, I just saw this one in the store and the grain on it is really cool. Yeah, this guitar rocks, so I had to have another one. I just missed that sound and that tone. You know, but the gas didn't stop there. I've already swapped out the bridge pickup for a Lawler mini humbucker, and I couldn't be happier about it. Probably one of my biggest videos of all time has been the comparison I did with Gibson P90 pickups versus Lawler P90s. So I have best of both worlds here in this guitar. So this guitar was buyback number one. And just real quickly, I also bought back a Ibanez Pia in Panther Pink, a Johnny Marr Signature Jaguar, and a Taylor 700 series acoustic guitar, which is right there. I used to own a Taylor, I think it was a 724 CE. It was rosewood with a nice sunburst or tobacco burst finish on it. Sold that guitar many moons ago to help fund the purchase for the blue PRS CE24, which is now also gone. So as you can see, my gas kind of builds like a snowball sometimes. So folks, with all that being said, I definitely do not recommend my strategy that I used or my approach whatsoever. Don't do what I do. Don't even do what I say. I can't help you with your own gas. That's for sure. And that's because I don't have it figured out myself. Right now, I'm at the point where just seeing if my approach is going to work long term, to be honest. I am by no means an expert. And to be honest, everyone's experience is a lot different. Everyone's situation is different. Financials are a lot different for everybody. A lot of factors at play there. But, sticking to, some basic practical facts, right? Realistically, the tools that we use are not really appreciated by the audience at the end of the day. It's kind of hard to avoid that. Thinking about it, I encourage everybody to pursue their passion for music and for really putting your all into it. And that means, you get the most out of using the right tools, right? But it really doesn't make sense to aim for gear that's kind of, out of your league, so to speak, beyond your abilities or beyond your budget. I guess another way to think about it is if that particular sound or tone only comes from a certain type of gear or one specific piece of gear, at the end of the day, you best be prepared to suffer for it, to attain that and to grab it. Like the way I think about it is like, I love the sound of a 59 Les Paul, so many great players have used it and it's got a great tone. Pre-war Martin is another example. Those are the best guitars in the world, or most coveted anyway. But when I think about it, I don't really need those actual instruments to achieve tones that are pretty close, or if, just as good, in my opinion, or like I said, the audience won't really tell the difference anyway, right? And I went by many years with, the cheapest, most mediocre gear or best gear that I could afford from, my love of cars and street racing, and I always say, run what you brung, right? Many years as gear has changed and our situations have changed, sometimes we acquire more better shit, and sometimes we're using the old crap from before, right? Because it's, some stuff stands the test of time. Really, getting to a point where you get all your holy grail equipment is just super hard work, I think. In my case, it took me lots and lots of time, lots of patience, energy, research, bucket loads of money. Your experience might vary. Some of you might have a easier or even more difficult time than I do with this whole gas thing and acquiring gear. But one thing I kind of wanted to mention is that it has also been fun and very rewarding. I also get a lot of satisfaction, a little bit maybe bit of pride too, you know, pride of ownership, you know, satisfaction knowing that I busted my ass to earn what I've got. So I do feel a little bit good about that on the positive side. Maybe we can't have it all, but maybe we can have enough. And when it comes to, you know, gear and what my goals are, I've stopped trying to move the goalpost and or, you know, let myself feel it being moved by, you know, outside forces and advertisements and, you know, internet stuff. Really, in the end, you know, my gas journey has been about actively trying to work and pin it down and future proof it so it doesn't flare up again. It's taking like conscious effort amongst other things, you know, even making silly YouTube videos like this so I can document it and look back on this, you know, in the future and see where I'm at. I hope the gas is gone, but that's probably not realistic considering I just bought a guitar a few days ago, so it hasn't been long enough. I hope it goes away for a while. If it's not curable, it's at least hopefully treatable. So yeah, why make a video like this? Like I said, it's to check in on myself a little bit. Hopefully we can all learn something by sharing our experiences. Like I don't really have advice for you folks, but maybe pick something up in my story that might apply to you. I'd love to hear, you know, your story in the comments, where you're at with your gas. Like I said, it can also be fun. You gotta take the piss out of yourself every once in a while and enjoy the journey. Also enjoy getting there, playing with your equipment and getting the most out of it. I think that's what it's all about at the end of the day. So another long, rambly, talky video. I hope you folks enjoyed it. And if you managed to stick around this long, I thank you. Dan Skill out.